Hello, and welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto, attorney at law in the state of Michigan, where I'm practicing law now for over 24 years in the fields of consumer protection and lemon law. I often write about this stuff for places like Jalopnik, Opposite Lock, and Road and Track, and I've written a few books along the way. People often ask me about the law, and they say, Steve, when will tuning my car void my warranty? Okay, we've all heard about people who tune their cars. I'm not talking about doing a tune-up on your car, but tuning your car, where you do something to soup it up, as they said back in the old days, to hot rod your car, some kind of modification to make it cooler or faster or something. When will that void your warranty? And people will often tell you, well, you know, modifying your car will void your warranty. And that's not always true. In fact, it's often not true. And you need to know when the case is that tuning your car will it void your warranty, when, if so, why, etc., etc. So I'll explain this to you, and I'll give you an example. I had a client a few years ago who had a vehicle, and he chipped it. He put a performance chip in it, and I'll explain what that is in a second for the few of you who don't know what that is. And then later on, his transmission failed. Now, the transmission in his car was a manual transmission. That means he worked a clutch and he shifted the gears manually, like the old days. And when the manual transmission failed, he took it back to the dealership under warranty and said, hey guys, my transmission failed. And they said, well, you know something, we see that you've chipped your engine, and therefore we think you're racing it, and we're going to void your warranty. We're not going to do the repair on this. And I spoke to my client and asked him exactly what they told him. He says that they told him his warranty was voided. That's the dealership telling him this. He complained about it. And the vehicle qualified under the lemon law. It had been in for enough repair attempts and so on. So we filed a lawsuit, and we got in a huge fight over it. I'll explain to you how that all went down. But basically, here's the situation. There's a law called the MagnusonMoss Warranty Act. It's a federal statute, sometimes called the federal lemon law. And I've talked about that many times on Lehto's Law because it comes into play in almost every lawsuit I file. If you buy a consumer product that has a warranty on it and the product proves to be defective and the manufacturer won't take care of it for you, you can sue them under the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act. Well, the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act also says that the manufacturers cannot require you to use their parts or even their service to keep the warranty intact unless they meet particular specific guidelines. They've got to prove there's some reason why their part is better than an aftermarket part, for instance, and it never happens. So, you know, if you buy a car and it's got a warranty on it and it needs a new air filter, you don't have to buy an air filter from the manufacturer. In fact, you're insane if you do that because they're so horrendously overpriced, okay? So you can slap in any air filter you want, any fuel filter you want, any water pump you want, anything you want. But so what happens is, from time to time, people will do something to their car that's not just a typical part. They'll modify the car. We refer to those as mods, for those of us who've got too little time to actually say complete words. And you'll hear about, for instance, people who change the stance on their car. That is the people who take particularly if they take a foreign car and they lower it so that it can barely get over, you know, a bump in the road, and they think it looks cool because it's got a different stance, okay? Or they'll do things like they'll upgrade things inside the engine, slap in a new camshaft, or they'll, like I said, they'll do a chip. Now you go, what's a chip? Okay, let me explain this to you. Nowadays, modern cars have all kinds of stuff underneath the hoods besides the engine, and they have all kinds of like electronic control modules, engine control modules, transmission control modules, all kinds of computers under there. And there's often a chip that controls the engine performance. And now, you might not think that the engineers at a big manufacturer know how to actually make the engine run best. I suspect they do, but that's just me. But you know, they'll often do things where they'll make the engine run optimally for a typical consumer. And oftentimes they're doing stuff also to give better gas mileage or to do with the emissions. So what happens is, companies out there sell these aftermarket chips, and forgive me, but I'm going to read to you. This is straight off a website that sells performance chips, and here's what they say about the chips. They say, engines are designed for optimal performance, but manufacturers dial it back for release to the general public. Performance chips and power programmers let you squeal past sluggish factory settings and unleash the high-performance potential that's waiting underneath your hood. Performance chips for trucks, cars, and SUVs, also called super chips, optimize your ECU computer settings and allow your engine to respond accordingly. Performance programmers and tuner modules give you control of your vehicle's most critical settings and functions right in the palm of your hand. Well, actually underneath the hood of your car. Get massive boosts in horsepower and torque while you enjoy greater fuel efficiency with one of these easy plug-and-play upgrades. So you see this ad on the internet. In the old days, you'd see an ad like this in the back of a hot rod magazine. And you buy something like this and you stick it in your car, and suddenly it seems like your car is a little faster, a little more powerful, something like that. And so the question is, will that void your warranty? Well, first of all, you'll almost never have your entire warranty voided by something. So in other words, let's suppose that something bad were to happen to you because of that engine chip. They're not going to void the entire warranty on your car. They're simply going to void the warranty that's affected by the chip. But here's the situation, okay? When you change some kind of thing on the vehicle and then you have a failure and you take it to the dealership for repair, the warranty covers defects in material and workmanship. So if you can point to a problem and say, look, it's obviously broken due to a defect in material and workmanship, they're going to have to fix it. But if you've made a modification or change to the car that caused the problem you're complaining about now, that's not a defect in material or workmanship, okay? So it's not that you're not allowed to use the modification or upgrade. It's just that your modification or upgrade better not break something in the car. So for instance, my client, and this again, I know people will argue with me on this one. My client put a chip in his engine. It made the engine supposedly run better, okay? So he's got this chip in his engine that supposedly makes the engine put out more horsepower, more torque, whatever it is. And his transmission fails, okay? So I took the deposition of some people from the dealership and I said, I'm curious, explain to me how the chip wrecked the transmission. And they go, well, it didn't directly. He was racing the vehicle. And I said, how do you know that? And they said, well, that's why you put a chip in a car, to race it. I said, so now you're basically saying that because my client's got the chip in his car, you're presuming that he races the vehicle and it's his racing of the vehicle that voids the warranty on the transmission. And they said, well, I guess so. So the interesting thing is, they weren't voiding anything because of the chip. They were actually trying to say that it was his behavior that voided that part of the warranty. And frankly, the warranty booklet already says if you misuse, abuse, or race the vehicle, your warranty will be voided on any parts that are damaged while you're doing that. Now, I've actually had several clients who are accused of beating on their vehicles because they took them out to track days and so on. In fact, I've spoken to quite a few people ever since I started writing for Jalopnik and Opposite Lock about this, where they'll say, yeah, I take my car out and track it routinely. And sometimes these people at the dealership even know I do that. And then, of course, when something breaks in the drivetrain, they complain about it and say, well, it broke because you're racing it, okay? And so here's the situation. And again, this is the question I get all the time. People say, I think the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act is on my side. Don't I win this? And I say, well, let me explain to you how this works, because it's not that simple. Too many people think that if the law is on your side, you win. And because you win, life will be easy, all unicorns and rainbows, nothing bad will ever happen. And unfortunately, you can be right on the law, and unfortunately, you still have to litigate something, and litigation is painful, okay? Litigation's like open chest surgery, okay? It's not something you take lightly, and it's very, very expensive, and you don't want to go through it if you don't have to. So let's suppose that you chipped your car. You put a chip, an engine performance chip of some sort in your car, and you foolishly brought your vehicle in for repairs under warranty, and you left the chip in there, which, by the way, I've told people this before. If you can remove the modification before you bring the vehicle in for service, why don't you? Okay? So if the vehicle's acting funny with the modification in place, remove the modification and see if it's still acting funny. And if it is, you can make a decent argument that your modification is not causing the problem. Okay? Now I understand that once in a while something might happen to your vehicle where something breaks, okay, and removing the modification, it's broken, got to tow it to the dealership. They might go, gee, it's a failure that looks like the vehicle may have been chipped at one time, but I digress. So you bring the vehicle in and you say, look, guys, I've been driving this vehicle perfectly normally, not tracking it, nothing like that, no racing, no nothing, and the transmission failed, okay? And they look at it and they go, you got an aftermarket chip in here. And the chip, of course, controls the engine, not the transmission, but you've got a chip in here. And we think that that somehow led to the failure in your transmission. Now, they've got to be able to make the connection that one thing led to the other, okay? But here's the problem. The law says, and I'm talking about case law here, there are actually cases out there where the courts have talked about this, that if you're the consumer and you've got a product and a warranty on the product, and then the product fails and you think it's covered by the warranty, and you present it to the manufacturer under warranty, say, guys, I want you to repair this under warranty. When you're in the courtroom, the burden of proof is on you to show those things, okay? I bought the vehicle, came with a warranty, it suffered a failure, the failure was covered by the warranty, they failed to fix it, okay? That's a prima facie case, that's the only Latin I'll use today. That's a basic case that you have to put in to get in there that you're entitled to something, okay? Now here's the problem. So the burden of proof is on you to do that, and it's a preponderance burden if you're curious about that. So it means you have to just prove more likely than not that you've done those things. And it's very easy to prove. You own the vehicle, here's a bill of sale. Suffered a failure, here's a repair order, so on. Now here's what happens. The manufacturer then has, or the warrantor then has, the burden of proof to show that they don't have to cover this because of something you did. So if you misused or abused the vehicle, they've got to prove that by a preponderance. If the modification caused the problem and therefore it's not a defect in workmanship or materials, then they have to prove that by preponderance. But they have to prove it by a preponderance. So in other words, it's a shifting burden of proof. I prove the basics, and they have to, in essence, prove their side of the case. And of course, at that point, a jury or a court would pick a winner. Now, I have people all the time. They call my office, I speak to them, I email with them, we converse whatever way we do these in this advanced time of ours with modern wonders of the internet. And people say, Steve, I've got this car, had a failure, manufacturer through their dealership refuses to fix it, and I am right. Okay, I win. Okay, how do I resolve this? Now, here's the problem. You're standing there, let's put this in a theoretical situation. You're standing there at the dealership and you go, guys, fix it. And they're going, no, we're not going to fix it. Manufacturer won't approve the repair. No, you're at a standoff. In real life, the very next step then is for you to either say, and walk away from it, or file a lawsuit. Now, I understand some people go, well, couldn't I write letters to the president and do email blasts and call my local congressman and maybe call the local TV station and maybe slap signs on the side of my car? Yeah, do all of those things. It'll help you work some of your frustrations out. It won't help you in any legal way, but you can always do those things. And so the real answer is you are going to have to litigate, okay? And that's the problem. Litigation is never cheap, easy, or inexpensive. So you start calling around, and that's why many people from other states call me. Because they say, Steve, I can't find an attorney in my state who will take this case. They describe the case to me, and I say, well, if you're in my state, I wouldn't take it either. Okay, it depends on what the problem is and so on. But here's the thing. If you have such a case, and if you proceed with it and you win, you can get your attorney fees and court costs reimbursed to you. But most attorneys out there will say, but I don't want to take that risk, because who's to say a jury might go, gee, a 16-year-old kid chips his engine in his car and his transmission fails, and several certified master mechanics are going to testify and say, yeah, we think too much horsepower is going through the transmission. That's what caused the problem. Who's a jury going to like on this one? We don't know. And so a lot of attorneys are going to say, you got to put the money up front, and then I'll try to get it back for you at the other end. Okay? And so in the case with my client who called me and said, hey, Steve, I've got a chipped engine and the transmission failed, he had documentation that the transmission was failing all along, similar problems. They never once mentioned the chip. I think he may have actually brought it in once or twice before he even chipped it, but I could be wrong on that. It's been a few years. But the point is, we had to litigate that case. And I'm talking about litigation with one of the biggest, meanest law firms in Detroit. Just thinking about it gives me chills. And we wound up settling the case. I got my client something that he was happy with, and he went on with his life. I don't know if the vehicle he's driving today is chipped or not, okay? It very well could be, but I think he may have learned a very valuable lesson. And the point is that you can be right, okay? But the only way to prove how righteous your case is to go to court and litigate, okay? And I have people say, well, Steve, if Chrysler has denied the claim on my car, Ford's denied the claim on my car, and we file a lawsuit, won't they just roll over and pay it because they don't want to litigate? No. Ford, GM, and Chrysler have got legal departments where they've got people on staff who are being paid salaries, who are sitting around with nothing better to do than to defend a case like that. In fact, they don't even worry about cases like that because those are the easy ones for them. You know, they've got cases after where cars flip over and kill people and explode, burst into flames, whatever. And so when someone comes along and says, by the way, my transmission failure was not covered by the manufacturer and we want to file a lawsuit over that, they look at that and go, what's the worst exposure we have here? I mean, if we have to pay for the guy's transmission, we're at a couple grand and a couple $1,000s in attorney fees. It's chump change. Whatever. Let's just boom. And they will litigate that till the cows come home, and you may or may not win. So my advice to you is, if you're going to modify your car, okay, understand that you might have issues down the road should you have a failure under warranty. Now, if your vehicle's out of warranty, modify it all you want. It doesn't matter. If it blows up, it's on you. But it's the brand new cars or the late model cars with manufacturer's warranties on them. And understand that if there's a problem with your car that's remotely related to the system that fails, it's covered by the warranty, there's a good chance they're going to go, that modification caused that problem. So you stance your car, now you get a problem with the suspension, they're going to complain. You put nitrous on your car. By the way, we don't call it NOx. Only Hollywood calls it NOx. Normal people call it nitrous. You put nitrous on your car and you get engine problems, they're going to spot that too. So be careful about the modifications and what the problems might arise from them, and understand that you could be right and still lose, because you probably can't get an attorney to take the case unless you're willing to pay for it yourself. So that's the real problem. You can be right all day long, but they'll still deny the claim. So that is when tuning will and will not void your warranty. When will tuning your car void your warranty? Questions or comments, always shoot them my way. LehtosLaw.com, LehtosLaw.com. I'm on Twitter at Steve Lehto, at SteveLehto. And this show's on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podbean, Google Play, and YouTube, as far as I know. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye-bye.